Wernicke. Worked for the Overland Park Fire Department, Battalion Chief. Been here 37 years, getting ready to retire. I always wanted to be a firefighter. It's kind of my dream growing up. Turned 18, got out of high school, family relocated from Chicago to Kansas City. I went to the doctor. When I first got here, I had enrolled in Penn Valley Community College and as a firefighter program. Rich Lehman, who was deputy chief at the time, Grandview Fire Department, said, "Oh, you gotta be a paramedic too, that's the future." This was in 1982. So I said, well, I'll go to paramedic school too, but I had to go to a doctor to get a physical. It was Kay Barney in Parkville. She asked what I was doing. I said, I'm going to school, become a firefighter, paramedic. She goes, oh, you got to volunteer for South Platte. We have a great department. So that's how I got started. 18 years old, started there. About the same time Kenny Micklich started. We worked together there and worked as a mass paramedic for 3 years. Back then, when you applied to a fire department, there was 150 people applying. Took me 3 years. I applied to every department in the county and finally got a job. Same time offer at Lenexa in Overland Park. And a good friend of mine, Dan Rodas, was at Lenexa at the time, and he goes, oh, you better pick Overland Park, they're up and coming. So that's how I ended up here. My dad wanted me to be a doctor. He was mad that I joined the fire service at first, but when he saw how much I loved it, then he was really glad I did. I got on in '87. The whole purpose was for us to open Station 4, which was not built yet. Just like the pool house, we were in a double wide trailer, walked across, had a pole barn. The barn is still down there that we ran out of. That was the first place I was assigned. Worked there about 3 to 6, I think 6 months. And then they moved us around. I moved to 3s, which is 9s now. So it was a fire station back then. Worked there for about another 6 months. I really wanted to go to Station 1 because a lot of the guys I got hired with, Tom Loads, was up at Station 1. And he goes, oh, you got to come up here. And they weren't moving people at the time. The battalion chief was Jimmy Deneen, and at the time he had a old pull alarm that he had got, an old antique. And so he's joking around one day, and he said, if you got me a pole for it, I might consider moving you. I won't go into details how I got one, but I did get one, and I came to work with it in the back of my pickup, and we walked outside, and I said, I had something for you. And he looked at it and he goes, really, you're going to give it to me? And I said, yeah. And so the next tour, I moved up to Station 1 and I was there about 9 years. So that was one of my favorite stations. At the time, we only had 4 stations, 1, 2, 3, 4. Most of the guys worked overtime in Stanley. And covered that station, which ended up being Station 5. My captain at the time was Darrell Cordell. Lieutenant was Johnny Myers, whose son John Myers was with Olathe as well. Had a really good shift. Was up there 9 years, had a lot of fun. It wasn't super busy then, so had a lot of pranks and stuff like that. Had a good time, but really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed every shift I've worked on and moved around, stayed on A shift for a long time, and then as promotions came around, I ended up going to B shift and then back to A shift and then to C shift and moved stations. I've been at 1s, 2s, 4s, the old 5s, the old 3s, and I think that's been about all that I've been at. When I started, it's a big joke, my 3/4 boots, but that's what we started in, 3/4 boots and a long coat. And bunker boots or pants were bunker pants because you kept them in the bunk room at night when you were sleeping, and you'd wake up and put those on. In other words, during the day you'd wear 3/4. I rode tailboard when I started. You know, the fire trucks when you first started driving were manual. You pumped them and had 2 gauges, the intake and the out, pressure gauge. Stand on the hose, turn it up until the hose got hard, bounce a couple times, it was good to go. We didn't wear hoods, we wear hoods now. We did wear SCBA then. So the gear's gotten better, the trucks are more sophisticated, there's computers on them. I don't know if that's such a good idea, but everything advances. But in the end, when I started to today, we're still doing the same thing. It takes courageous men and women to drag a hose into a fire or medic kit off the truck and go take care of someone. It's the same thing we've done for 37 years that I've been here. So it's really not much different. Yeah, I got promoted after I'd been firefighter for 9 years. It took me 5 years, and then it just happened to be at a perfect time where fairly quickly, after about 2 or 3 years, I got promoted to captain. Then I had gone for battalion chief with no intention on ever making it, but you take the opportunity to go through that process so you have experience, and so I thought I'd do that. At the time, Chief Diener was deputy chief, and he calls me up and he goes, "Well, I got good news and I got bad news." He goes, "The good news is, we created a new position called senior captain. So you didn't get battalion chief, but you got senior captain, which will be your little braze, and you'll work direct." And that was when we had 3 battalion chiefs only. And he goes, "You'll work directly under the battalion chief that's there, and you'll get mentored for a year, and then we'll promote you, and that's when we go to 2 battalion chiefs." What turned out to be 1 year turned out to be 4. So I was senior captain, I moved to 2B, so I was captain there, worked under Chief McGee, which actually, a lot of people thought he was gruff, but I got along with him really well. I learned a lot, got promoted to battalion chief after 4 years, and moved back to A shift, and was battalion chief BC 46. And then after a few years passed, they did some restructuring, and I moved to C shift, and that's where I am today on Battalion 45. I get the same thrill when I come to work each morning. You smell the old fire smell in a fire station, the diesel exhaust, and you hear the banter of the kitchen. It's no different than it was 37 years ago, and it just seems like yesterday. And then all of a sudden you decide, it's time to go. I still like doing the job. There's really nothing from keeping me from doing it, but I've got other things I'd like to do, more chapters in my life, and it was a good time for me and my family, so that's kind of how I got where I got. One of my proudest accomplishments was, in 2002, Mark Mansfield passed away while in the fire station. And when I started, first got to Station 1, I was an explorer advisor with the program, and Mark Mansfield was an explorer. And we became friends. He was a great guy. You couldn't be more enthusiastic. He was more enthusiastic than me, and I love the fire service, so he was all in. And he got hired. And unfortunately he passed away. His shift, which Rodelsheimer was the officer of at the time, went to the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial. He came back and he said, their family, the Mansfield family, got letters from departments all around, and they got little memorial pins remembering other firefighters that have lost their lives. And I thought, oh, that's a great thing. We don't do anything like that here. So since that time, I've written a letter of sympathy on behalf of our fire department and the Benevolent Association. I provide a pin that says "Never Forget." It's got Mark's badge number on it and his name, to every family that has lost a firefighter in the line of duty from that time to today. When I say never forget, I did not forget. City Place fire, biggest fire, not only in Overland Park, in Johnson County, in the Midwest. I mean, I like to personally say it's one fire smaller than the Great Chicago Fire. Pat DuPont, sees smoke and fire from a distance, orders a second alarm before we ever get there, which never happens. I get there, order a third, and it has to be the hottest fire on the outside that I'd ever been to. I mean, I was hotter on the outside than any fire inside I've been in my life. You got a 5-story building fully involved, impinging on, 1-story garages and another 4-story building next door and another 5-story building over here. There was a huge field, so we didn't even think about all the houses that it might affect because you can't see the plume. I do want to say credit to the 2 Lenexa crews and the 2 Overland Park crews that initially we assigned up there between the original building that was involved trying to save the other building in the parking garage, because while I was hot, I wasn't as close as they were, and they had lights melt on their truck, windows break, Dave Clark melt, but they held strong, and I think that's what really kept the second building from catching. We just didn't have enough people there right away to keep it from getting to the third. And then once we realized all the embers were going, and there were going to be 25 houses that burned, then it became huge. I think if you counted all the fire trucks there, we had 11 alarms, which Kansas City's never had an 11 alarm fire. So, the size of it, the extent of it, once again, Overland Park did a great job. What's been important to me is I've done a good job. I tried every day, came into work happy, treated everyone kindly and with respect. I learned that from Pat Mays. Ever be the nice guy. Sometimes I didn't have to be the nice guy, but that's part of the job. But, I'm walking away proud of the job I did. I probably shouldn't say that because he's probably going to see the video.
Thank you, Grant, and I'm glad you're here so we can talk about you wearing 3/4 boots when this is over.
I picked one of the best, Grant Wernicke. He taught me wearing the proper gear at all times.
A lot of things happened back then. I could go into more detail on a lot of them, but someone told me not to. Their initials are HR. Luckily, it was a lieutenant that ordered me to do this because it saved my job. We were at Station 1, and if you knew the station, there was a day room. There was a bay door coming into the day room and a little kitchen area that came into the day room. We played with fireworks in the fire stations then, all the time. So he was going to light his bandolero of firecrackers and throw them in from one side while everyone was sleeping in the afternoon. I'm sure it was a weekend. I'm sure it wasn't a week. I was going to come in the other side and throw my bandolero of firecrackers in. And he lit his, and I'm trying to light mine. It was the old matches you'd light on the wall. My match broke, I couldn't light it. He threw his in. Everyone took off running. It was real funny, haha, until the carpet started on fire. Got that out, and then, we got in trouble. I was probably lucky. The lieutenant ended up getting demoted, unfortunately. But yeah, that was a pretty lucky deal on my part. I've been lucky that way in my career.